Okay, so I was thinking. So I just did a chronicle of. I'm in this thought process while I'm transitioning into retirement. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. But during this process, I think about different things. I think about my career, and I think about what I would have done differently. What am I proud of? And so the last video, I talked about the things that I regret in my career, things that I didn't do that I wish I had done. And I thought maybe I'll do a follow-up on things that I'm proud of, some things that I did do that I am proud of, and they just added to my life in ways that were more than just an experience. They made my life better when I think about how it added to my personality, how it added to my values, how it added to my experience, how it added to my confidence. And I thought I would share that with you. So I have eight things that I'm proud of, and I would like to share with you. And if you have any thoughts, what are you proud of in your career? This list might grow over the next couple years as I'm thinking. But tell me what you're proud of. By the way, this is Choice at Winding Down Chronicles of an Expat going into early retirement in Southeast Asia. I'm not retired yet, but I'm getting there, and this process is really just helping me think through these things. So no particular order. So I'm going to start with the first one, the times that I did show courage. And similar to the last one, it was times I didn't show courage, but this is times that I did show courage. I spoke up at times when it wasn't convenient or in my personal interest to speak up. Especially when you're sitting there with a lot of people in a room, or even a few people in a room, are very smart and they've got strong opinions, and they approach things very differently than you do. But to get up and be the only person saying something that's contrary to everyone, not to be contrarian, but to really express a different idea or opinion and not be of the hive mind. I've been proud of those moments. Some of them were moments where it was quite controversial, and it was scary. I'll admit that. But most of the times, you end up appreciating people who are going against the grain, who are challenging the status quo. And I tend to find myself like that more often, especially the older I get, and standing up to bullies at work, people who want to just dominate conversations, standing up to them, and not in an aggressive way, but challenging them and their attitude with a good argument and with facts. In the same category is I took the jobs that people didn't want. I went to the countries and I went into the situations where most people would steer away from. And this is not saying anything bad about any of my colleagues who are also in these situations. But I know that I did take the jobs that were probably the most difficult and would be the most, putting my life on the line in some senses, and also putting my just emotional sanity on, some of the places where I worked in South Sudan and going into Congo and going into the border of Somalia. They were situations where people were afraid. It would be easy to go in. Going into Chad, during a coup and staying in the coup. I'm really proud of those times that it just gave me more confidence when I think back on what I was able to accomplish during those times, and also just to see God's hand in those experiences and keeping me safe, even in the midst of gunfire and chaos and even just turmoil within the organization. It's pretty windy today, so I hope you can hear me pretty well. So number 2, not being too rigid about my career path. So I talked about, I wish I would have been a little more intentional But I'm glad that I was flexible. I'm glad that I did take the opportunities that came along, because otherwise, if I was too rigid in a career path or what I wanted to go or where I wanted to go, I would have missed out on all the experiences I did have. Those difficult experiences I would not want to have again, but I'm really grateful I did have them. They just enhanced my experience and my professional perspective now. And I know it gained me some respect, especially among some of the my peers and even some of my bosses. And I'm pretty sure that that's why they, in several cases, they tried to keep me in the organization, keep me from moving on, because they knew they knew I could do it. I can go in, I could put my head down and just avoid all the noise. So just allowing the opportunities to come and being a little flexible about my career path, it was just, that would be number 2. So number 3, so most of the time I did work in humanitarian work. I was able to take annual leave back to visit the U.S. Throughout the year, I would take short trips. They would give you what's called a R&R or a small break, so you could take a week off and go to a neighboring country that was safe and a little more comfortable. Most of the cases I was in sub-Saharan Africa. That location was usually Kenya or Mozambique or Zanzibar. Something very close and relatively safe compared to Chad and Kenya and even Congo, DRC Congo. So part of the benefit was I could fly home every year. It was a annual contract. I could fly home every year and visit my parents for holiday. So I would get 2 to 3 weeks of holiday to visit my parents, and I'm really glad that I did that. I had a brother-in-law ask me one time, "Why do you come home? Why don't you go here? Why don't you go there?" And I'm like, I go to all those places. I want to see my parents. I want to see my family. And I want to, he didn't mean any harm by it. I just want to say that. But, when you're away from the family for that long and you just have that distance, and it was at a time when communication wasn't that easy and it wasn't inexpensive. I wanted to see my parents, and when I think back on my sisters, and when I think back on that, I think back on it now, I'm really glad I did that. Now I don't have them anymore, and I would give anything to see them again. But I'm grateful for the times that I did go. Even though I had other options, I would never change that. So I saw my parents every opportunity I could get, and when I was home, I was home. I didn't go around. I would visit a few friends earlier in my career, but then that kind of starts. That slowed down later, and so I would spend more time with my parents. And the last time I was home to see my parents, it was to bury them, and I spoke to them, and I got to see them and touch them before it was too late, and that's something you'll never get back. So that's number 3. So 4 would be traveling to the places and the countries that I did go to. I've worked in over 10 countries. It might even be 12, like for length of time. And I learned to speak 3 languages. I'm currently learning. I can speak some Thai, but I'm currently learning Lao. And I've gained a lot of experiences from that. I've traveled to more than 50 countries for like holiday or for pass-throughs, for like longer durations of time, for a couple days to a couple weeks. And I am really grateful for those experiences. I did that a lot when I was in Africa. So my first 20 years, I traveled a lot. It was ridiculous how much I traveled. And then when I came to Asia, that kind of stopped. I went to Laos, and I didn't need to travel anywhere. Laos just kind of settled me. I would see some of the other international people. They would every weekend they would travel across the border to Thailand and or go here and go there on weekends. And I don't think they had a lot of experiences overseas. So I think it's a combination of two things. I wore myself out and I was traveled out. I didn't need to go anywhere anymore. And the other thing was I was very content just to be in my house in Laos on weekends and long holidays. Even during American holidays, you know, all of the expats, most of them, especially with families, they wanted to go back to their home countries, and I didn't. I stayed there to cover during that time because I was just so content. So it just the travel bug. I ridded myself of the travel bug. Even now, after 8 years, you know, I talked to my wife about going to different places, and she has no interest, and neither do I. I'm very content here. I'm very content with my wife. I'm very content with a very simple life here in Laos and Bangkok, and I think that's just one of the reasons. It's just good timing for me. So number 5, I think one thing I'm proud of is I earned my dive master. So and I overcame a fear from that. So one of my trips when I was in Africa, I went to Zanzibar, and I was just sitting on the beach. It started to rain, and I ran in under a hut, and I didn't realize the hut or the building I was in. I didn't realize what it was, and I'm looking around, and then I see all these guys walking up to the beach with all this gear, fins and masks and wetsuits and tanks, and I'm like, well, this is scuba diving. I didn't know they would have scuba diving here. I was in the northern part of Zanzibar in Nungwi, and I thought, and I started asking about it. You know, I never considered scuba diving, never considered it. I was never really in places that I could do that. And the next day I said, you know, one of the fears I had about would be going underwater and learning to breathe underwater. I don't know, I picked up something from my childhood. I don't know what that's linked to. But I thought, I'm gonna get over this fear and I wanna try this out. So I tried it out. I think it was 2007. And it's when I was working in Congo, and I took a week break and went to Zanzibar. And then I just got hooked. I overcame the fear of breathing underwater, and I got hooked. And then over the years, almost every trip that I took was for scuba diving. So every quarter or so I just built up my dives. And then eventually I took an advanced course. And then I took my life savings course, my, what do they call that? The rescue diver. That was the best course ever. And then years later, after I had over 250 dives, I decided I'm going to do my scuba dive master. You know, and I thought originally that this would be plan B. You know, this would be, okay, I'll do this every other year or so. I'll just go somewhere and be a scuba dive master, and make a little bit of money to live on and just travel the world like that. Or if I ever lose my job, this would be my plan B. I didn't know much about it. So anyway, after I finished my one gig in South Sudan, I arranged with the dive unit, dive center in Zanzibar, where I had learned all of my certifications, except for one. I did do my certification for nitrox and advanced scuba diving in Mozambique. But I stayed there I was supposed to be there for 6 months. I ended up doing it in 3 months because I got a job sooner than I had planned to get one, and I had to leave. So we kind of did a rush. You know, I did all the testing, I did all the scoring, and yeah, I did all the skill tests, but they just kind of sped things up a little bit for me so I could finish before I left. And I earned my scuba dive master. I kept that active. You'd have to pay a membership for many years, and I decided to let that fall about a couple years later, in 2018 when I came to Laos, or came to Bangkok. because it was just an expense. I wasn't, and I just realized I'm not going to do it. Anyway, so that was a big achievement that I'm very proud of. Number 7 is I saved what I could. I could have done better. I wish I would have saved more. I had a fair amount of flexible income over the years since doing humanitarian work, because in most of the places I didn't really need to spend any money, so all that money just kind of got saved. And I made some bad investments along the way. I did some things prematurely without understanding what I did. But fortunately, I had that mindset. I did spend. I ate. I did do things with on a higher income, with a higher flexibility in my income, and I didn't skimp on things. I didn't really look at price tags for if I wanted something. If I bought my scuba gear, and I bought the best that I could, or the best that was available, and but I had a fair amount of savings, and that was mostly because of the influence of my mother. So fortunately, that savings, even though it could have been better, was not as good as it could be, and as good as much as I wish it would be right now. So because it was at a time when I didn't think I would be retiring or want to retire. So I'm glad I have the savings now that I have, so that I can retire with a modest budget. Number 8, so on to here. So this was earning my master's degree earlier on in my career. This was when I earned this degree when I was it was 1997, and I was working in Haiti, and I became aware of this through some of the other international people. I was working for Hospital Albert Schweitzer. I was their office manager there, and I became aware of this master's degree that was offered from a U.S. university in California called Azusa Pacific University, and they were doing correspondence courses. So they would bring in professors in from the university for 2 weeks a year, and they would teach eight classes in a 2-week period. So four classes each week. So a lot of the internationals took the courses just for fun. They were college level courses. These were real professors who were donating their time, volunteering their time to come and offer this program to international people, typically Christians and missionaries who were in Haiti. I wasn't really a missionary, but I was a Christian. I didn't work for a mission. I worked for a humanitarian organization, and where a lot of the other people did work for churches or Christian organizations. So I took this course. I was very scared. I never, because it was in a field. It was organizational leadership, and the program was called Operation Impact, and I was scared because it was kind of in field and on subjects that I'm not comfortable with. So I tended to always avoid the courses that I didn't do well in, or I just wasn't comfortable. I stuck with the sciences. I stuck with the math and that type of thing. But this course has really opened up my mind. Just opened up a part of my thinking that just was I was scared of. I was scared of exploring, and this master's course just changed my world in many ways. It changed my thinking on how I approach work and people, and it did open opportunities. So a master's degree, of course, professionally will add to your curriculum vitae. So I think it did give me opportunities in jobs where I normally wouldn't have had them. I think my experiences were growing. The skills I was learning, the languages and the international experience. But I'm sure the master's degree really just took me to another level, professionally and personally. Some of those courses that I loved were psychology and organizational planning, strategic thinking, counseling, and business paradigm shifts, I don't remember all the courses, ethics, and just some, or the one, some of the ones I liked the most were psychology. And they actually were courses that I was thinking of actually changing my career. I was thinking of going into psychology or something, or counseling, because I am so interested in understanding why people do what they do. And what are they doing? I like to know what everybody's doing out there. Not out of curiosity. I guess it is curiosity, but it's just out of interest to understand why people do what they do, make decisions that they do, and it's just really helped me help me with interactions at work. Help me with negotiating and understanding people's different perspectives and the different cultures, and a lot of intercultural class and education. So I earned that degree. I thought I was just going to take a couple courses, but I ended up not only earning the degree in 5 years. So I started that in 1997, and I graduated in 2004 at the time of the coup in Haiti. And I actually, the last 2 years, I actually became the coordinator for the program. So I loved it that much that I was the one who would organize for the professors to come to Haiti, organize the location, get the students, market it, and this was all on my tab. I didn't care. I was very excited, and it just gave me that opportunity to explore my creative side. And so I had a lot of opportunities that I took, even though they made me uncomfortable, even though they made me, some of them scared me, and even though some of them I wasn't sure if I would succeed, I did it. And I'm really proud of some of these things. There might be more. I'm sure there will be more. There'll be more examples later. But this is something I just wanted to write down and share with you, and encourage you to think about your career. So if you're transitioning into retirement, I encourage you to start thinking of these things now. To write them down, and you have that memory, because you don't want to look back on your career. I know sometimes I might come across as I am ready to stop working, and it's largely because I'm just not very happy in the work environment that I'm in now. I like what we do, and I like what I do particularly. I just don't like this work environment, and it's just become much more stressful than I care to live with. And being in my mid-50s, I don't want to spend the rest of my life like this. I don't want to live my life in an office and be around people that I'm just not. There aren't the people that I want to be around if I died tomorrow. I want to be around my family. I want to be around my closer friends. I want my time to be much more specific, intentional, to be doing what I really want to be doing for myself and for my family, and hopefully for what I think God has intended for me to do when I finally stop working. Because I won't stop working, but I will stop working for an income. So tell me about yourself. Let me know in your comments, what are you proud of? Give me an idea, and maybe we'll revisit this subject later. So again, this is Troyce at Winding Down Chronicles. Thanks for joining me on this side of the world, and until the next one, take it slow.